Yeah, you can start anytime with kirtan, please.
My humble obeisances to Maharaj and to the devotees, and to my Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajak Acharya Astotarasti Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shanma Kunda Radha Gunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai. Shri Ayodhya Dhama Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Yamuna Devi ki jai, Ganga Devi ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai, Transcendental Prasadam Distribution ki jai, Harinama Sankirtana ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Haribo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. With apologies to all the devotees here and especially to Maharaj. I've been given the unlikely responsibility of guiding tonight's Bhagavatam reading and discussion. I'm looking in the chat to see. No one seems to know yet exactly where we are. If anyone would like Murari Prabhu or Saraswati Mata or Vijay Krishna Prabhu, if you'd like to share the information where we stopped last time. Text 4 of what chapter, Saraswati Mata? 326.4 is what, that's where we stopped or where we're starting, Mata? Is that where we're starting tonight? Okay. So Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, the status quo, chapter 26, and we'll be starting at text 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nasta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloker Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Tada Rajastamo Bhava Kamha Lobhadayaschaye Chaita Itaranabhitham Stita Sattve Prasidati. So we're reading from text 4 of chapter 26, and I'm wondering, perhaps Saraswati Mata, would you like to read?
Sorry to interrupt, but Gurudas Prabhu, I'm going to make you the host, and then when the class is over, then you can just hit end, and it will the class will close and everything will be fine.
You mean leave?
Yeah, when you're ready to close the class, you just hit end at the bottom and it'll close, or I'll come back at the end maybe and just make sure. Sorry about that. Sorry everyone for interrupting.
All right. Saraswati, you says she can read the next verse. All right. So Vijay Krishna, would you like to read verse 4?
Yes, Gurudas Prabhu, I would like to read text 4. May I?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, thank you very much. You're most kind. The purport is an extended one. Should I read the whole purport?
Well, thank you for bringing that to my attention. It's not too long. I think you can read it.
Okay, Prabhu. Text 4. Sa esha prakritim sukshmam daivim gunamayim vibhuhu yadricha aibo pagatam abhyapadyatali layam. Translation. As his pastime, that Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest of the great, accepted the subtle material energy, which is invested with three material modes of nature, and which is related with Vishnu.
Vijay Krishna Prabhu, is there anything you can do about increasing your volume at all?
Wait. What about now?
Much better.
Yes, Prabhu. Purport. In this verse, the word gunamayim is very significant. Daivim means, quote, the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unquote. And gunamayim means, quote, invested with the three modes of material nature, unquote. When the material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, his gunamayim energy acts as a manifestation of the energies of the three modes. It acts as a covering. The energy emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests in two ways: as an emanation from the Supreme Lord and as a covering of the Lord's face. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that because the whole world is illusioned by the three modes of material nature, the common conditioned soul, being covered by such energy, cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The example of a cloud is very nicely given. All of a sudden, there may appear a big cloud in the sky. This cloud is perceived in two ways. To the sun, the cloud is a creation of its energy. But to the ordinary common man, in the conditioned state, it is a covering to the eyes. Because of the cloud, the sun cannot be seen. It is not that the sun is actually covered by the cloud. Only the vision of the ordinary being is covered. Similarly, although Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord, who is beyond Maya, the material energy covers the ordinary living entities. Those conditioned souls who are covered are individual living entities, and he from whose energy Maya is created is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In another place in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, 7th chapter, it is stated that Vyasadeva, by his spiritual vision, saw the Supreme Lord and the material energy standing behind him. This indicates that material energy cannot cover the Lord, just as darkness cannot cover the sun. Darkness can cover a jurisdiction which is very insignificant in comparison to that of the sun. Darkness can cover a small cave, but not the open sky. Similarly, the covering capacity of the material energy is limited and cannot act on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is therefore called Vibhu. as the appearance of a cloud is accepted by the sun, so the appearance of the material energy at a certain interval is accepted by the Lord. Although his material energy is utilized to create the material world, this does not mean that he is covered by that energy. Those who are covered by the material energy are called conditioned souls. The Lord accepts the material energy for his material pastimes in creation, maintenance, and dissolution. But the conditioned soul is covered. He cannot understand that beyond this material energy, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes. Just as a less intelligent person cannot understand that beyond the covering of the clouds, there is bright sunshine.
Thank you, Vijay. Krishna Prabhu, can you please grace us with comments or reflections that occurred to you?
I did rehearse this that I am going to say very quickly, because our time obviously is limited. When I am invited to offer comments, I think as follows. It is very difficult for me to comment about God because I am very small and God is very big. That is the first point. Second point, to comment in the presence of Jayadvaita Maharaj, it is very embarrassing because of the quality of the comments of Jayadvaita Maharaj. It's also like my comments very small and the comments of Jayadvaita Maharaj very big. And so what I decided to do, if I may, is, and that is what I like to do. I like to do the recitation because that is one of the austerities for speech chanted by Lord Krishna in his Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. It pleases the Lord if we regularly recite the Vedas. Although my first language is not English, still whenever I am invited, I do try to give my best because it is one of the austerities for speech.
Do you have any thoughts on what you read?
Yes, I would like to select.
I'm sure Maharaj will also contribute.
Yes, I'm always waiting for Maharaj's comments in the chat box.
But the question is, would you like to start us off? That's all. Would you like to start?
Yes, so what I like to do when I'm invited to present a comment is to extract a sentence, I liked it, and then invite any member of the Sangha to say something about such a sentence. Of course, first Maharaj and then any other member of the Sangha. And if I comment, it would be a very quick comment, very small comment, because I don't feel comfortable to speak.
What sentence do you see that you would like to comment on?
Yes, I liked it when in the purport it was mentioned that not only in the first paragraph, but in the second paragraph, repeatedly the mentioning of for the sun. The sun is not, it can never be covered by the cloud, but the cloud can cover the vision of the ordinary beings. And in a similar way, Maya can never cover God, but can cover the conditioned living entities. That part of the Siddhanta explains how different we are because of how conditioned we are from God, we are prone to be covered by Maya, and we need to take the required measures in order for it to never happen. Because if we become covered by Maya, then the purpose for the human form of life becomes lost. The human form of life is not meant for us to be covered by Maya. It is meant for the exact opposite. The human form of life is meant for the good use of the external energy of the Lord, which is the same as using it for the pleasure of the Lord. Then Maya cannot victimize us. So that is what I would offer. But I would like to hear from Maharaj and from any other member of the Sangha related to this part of the purport, or of course any other part. Thank you very much, Gurudas Prabhu. You're most kind.
Hare Krishna. So Maharaj writes that he's a little under the weather and won't be contributing much. But I liked your point about we as jivas being extremely small, and our tendency is to be covered, and we have to learn how to depend on Krishna to uncover the sun by hearing his words and placing our faith in them through the Shastras and through hearing from realized souls.
Yes, if we think that the purpose for the human form of life, that God create the human form of life for us to be covered by Maya, and that is his whole purpose for such a form of life, we are mistaken. The human form of life is meant for us to never become victimized by Maya or confused by Maya.
Well,
it may happen, but we should, like you just said, we should take the required measures for it to never happen, because if it happens, then there's in a purport of Srila Prabhupada in his Bhagavad Gita as it is, he says that milk, as soon as milk becomes yogurt, then for it to become milk again, it is extremely difficult. So when we become covered by Maya, then we are risking to face huge difficulties for returning to the normal position, which is pure devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord. That's why education, that's why children are sent to Gurukula, to be educated by the spiritual mother for the purpose of not becoming confused and illusioned by Maya. That is the role of the spiritual master. And the role of the parents, do not become a father or a mother unless you are capable of freeing your descendants from the cycle of repeated birth and death in the material world, which is not different from being victimized by Maya. So education the required education for us to never become victimized by Maya is a must.
Thank you, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
You're welcome, Prabhu.
Murari Gupta Prabhu writes in the chat, Hare Krishna, this is not a big issue, but I've often wondered when a non-devotee sees Krishna in a pastime, is he seeing a material form that Krishna manifests, or is there a covering on his eyes, the living entity's eyes, which makes him see spirit as matter? Well, Krishna's forms, we know Krishna has different forms. One form of Krishna, the original form of the Lord, never leaves Vrindavan, but for his pastimes in Mathura and Dwarka, he expands himself. But those expansions are all spiritual, so that's not exactly what you seem to be addressing. When we observe Krishna or Krishna's pastimes or hear of Krishna's pastimes, those are all completely spiritual, but we may have material coverings and not be able to hear them properly because of those coverings. So my tendency, Murari Prabhu, would definitely be to agree with your the last part of your statement. There's a covering over the eyes of the conditioned soul. And so when faced with pure spirit, we interpret it as matter, just like when, to me, it's the same thing as when Krishna was manifest on this earth. Many people saw Krishna, but did not have any awareness that he was the Supreme Lord. They took him as an ordinary human being. And that's due to our massive coverings that we've accumulated over lifetimes. Okay, any other comments? Okay, here's something in the chat from Priyanka. Daivihi eshagunamayi mama maya daratyaya mamiviye prapadyante mayametam tarantate. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So that's not quoted directly in the verse we just read, but that's definitely the same idea. As Prabhupada mentions in the purport, that although Lord Krishna is the cause of material energy, he's not covered by that energy. Just like the sun is not covered by the cloud, even though, as explained in the purport, even though the living entity sees the sun as covered by the cloud, because we haven't developed our spiritual vision. So we're coming to verse 5, and Saraswati Mata said, do you think you're available?
Yes. Yes, pranams to all. Text 5. Gunar vichitra srajitim sarupe prakritim praja vilokya mumehe sadya sa iha gnana guhya. Translation. Divided into varieties by her threefold modes, material nature creates the forms of the living entities, and the living entities, seeing this, are illusioned by the knowledge-covering feature of the illusory energy. Purport. Material energy has the power to cover knowledge, but this covering cannot be applied to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is applicable only to the praja, or those who are born with material bodies, the conditional souls. The different kinds of living entities vary according to the modes of material nature, as explained in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures. In Bhagavad Gita 7:12, it is very nicely explained that although the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance are born of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is not subject to them. In other words, the energy emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot act on him. It acts on the conditional souls who are covered by the material energy. The Lord is the Father of all living entities because he impregnates material energy with the conditioned souls. Therefore, the conditioned souls get bodies created by the material energy, whereas the Father of the living entities is aloof from the three modes. It is stated in the previous verse that the material energy was accepted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order that he might exhibit pastimes for the living entities who want to enjoy and lord it over the material energy. This world was created through the material energy of the Lord for the so-called enjoyment of such living entities. Why this material world was created for the suffering of the conditioned soul is a very intricate question. There is a hint in the previous verse in the word lilaya, which means for the pastimes of the Lord. The Lord wants to rectify the enjoying temperament of the conditioned souls. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that no one is the enjoyer but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This material energy is created, therefore, for anyone who pretends to enjoy. An example can be cited here that there is no necessity for the government's creation of a separate police department, but because it is a fact that some of the citizens will not accept the state laws, a department to deal with criminals is necessary. There is no necessity, but at the same time there is a necessity. Similarly, there was no necessity to create this material world for the suffering of the conditioned souls, but at the same time there are certain living entities known as Nityabadha who are eternally conditioned. We say that they have been conditioned from time immemorial because no one can trace out when the living entity, the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, became rebellious against the supremacy of the Lord. It is a fact that there are two classes of men, those who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Lord and those who are atheists or agnostics, who do not accept the existence of God and who want to create their own laws. They want to establish that everyone can create his own laws or his own religious path. Without tracing out the beginning of the existence of these two classes, we can take it for granted that some of the living entities revolted against the laws of the Lord. Such entities are called conditioned souls, for they are conditioned by the three modes of material nature. Therefore, the words gunar vichitra are used here. In this material world, there are 8,400,000 species of life. As spirit souls, they are all transcendental to this material world. Why, then, do they exhibit themselves in different stages of life? The answer is given here. They are under the spell of the three modes of material nature. Because they were created by the material energy, their bodies are made of the material elements. Covered by the material body, the spiritual identity is lost, and therefore the word mumuha is used here, indicating they have forgotten their spiritual identity. This forgetfulness of spiritual identity is present in the jivas or souls who are conditioned, being subject to be covered by the energy of material nature. Gnana guhya is another word used. Guha means covering. Because the knowledge of the minute conditioned souls is covered, they are exhibited in so many species of life. It is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th chapter, 1st canto, the living entities are illusioned by the material energy. In the Vedas also, it is stated that the eternal living entities are covered by different modes and that they are called tricolored, red, white, and blue. Living entities. Red is the representation of the modes of passion. White is the representation of the mode of goodness. And blue is the representation of the mode of ignorance. These modes of material nature belong to the material energy, and therefore the living entities under these different modes of material nature have different kinds of material bodies. Because they are forgetful of their spiritual identities, they think the material bodies to be themselves. To the conditioned soul, me means the material body. This is called moh, or bewilderment. It is repeatedly said in the Katha Upanishad that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is never affected by the influence of material nature. It is rather the conditioned souls who are the minute, infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme who are affected by the influence of material nature and who appear in different bodies under the material modes. So there's a lot to pack here, and it's very concise for anyone who's ever wondered who we are, why we are here, why are we suffering, why are there different varieties of living entities and different coverings. It basically answers a lot of those questions. Anyway, one of the things that I'm thinking of, and I make a list of questions and challenges that people, when they ask me questions, I try and make a list of it so then I can become familiar with. Usually there's a running theme. Here it says how living entities have rebelled and revolted against the laws of the gods. So I've made a list of ways in which we see this rebellion. Some people say, well, we're not opposed to having God making rules and the material universe. But what we are opposed to is, why does he have to be the enjoyer? That we do not feel comfortable with, the idea that we have to serve him. We are the enjoyed and he is the enjoyer. Another running theme is, well, Krishna has unlimited servitors already. I mean, can't he just let go of a few who don't want to serve him and let them get on with their life and enjoy it while having a spiritual body? Another person, you can't make me serve except him. Another person said, who made Krishna boss? I'm just as qualified, entitled, and deserving. I serve myself. I make my own rules. I chalk out my own destiny. I'm more than capable of achieving what I want. If I didn't manufacture, create any material resources, so what? No one created them. They are there for the use of the strongest in this world. Survival of the strongest. My life is worth more than anyone else's. Why should I be tied down to any rules or any religion that stuns my enjoyment and my desires? I have a right to lead my life in accordance to my wishes and desires. I want the kind of power that Krishna has. I want to be a master too. I don't feel comfortable with the idea of one supreme master ruler. So these are some of the way in which rebellion can take place. And it's interesting to them. I sometimes have so many thoughts that bombard my mind that my thoughts kind of become scattered. But Today there was a good discussion of nature versus nurture. That how is it that certain people develop certain personalities? Is it all ingrained in their DNA? Is something else influencing them so that they exhibit their personalities in different ways? One person was saying, well, we all have a lot of potential, but if like a flea can jump 40 times its height, but if you put a glass over that flea, then they've reached their ceiling. Then they eventually become conditioned to such an extent that they think that's the greatest height that they can jump. So in other words, they haven't reached their potential. Similarly, if you cage a cheetah, the fastest animal in this world, you put him in a cage, eventually that cheetah is going to think this is the speed, this is the only speed I can reach. So of course, these people that are making these comments don't understand that when you're conditioned by Maya, you, the part and parcel of Krishna, that is minute, but yet you have in minute quantity the same quality as the whole. Your potential's already been compromised because you're covered by Maya. You no longer have the original potential that you actually did have as a part and parcel of Krishna, because you've actually forgotten your spiritual identity and you're now identifying with whatever material encasement that you happen to be in. So when people rave about, I want to reach my full potential, you never can. If you're being dictated by the modes of nature, you never can reach your full potential. It's all buried and covered until you get to actually understand and realize that while Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and you have the greatest fortune to be enjoyed by him, you don't understand that that position of enjoyer and enjoyed is in a beautiful relationship in which the person serving Krishna is actually partaking in the supreme bliss. It's not that, oh, if I'm serving someone, then that the person I'm serving, he's the only person, he or she is the only person benefiting, profiting, and enjoying. And I've been put into this subordinate, oppressive position where, I'm slaving away, but I experience nothing. That's not what the spiritual transcendental relationship with Krishna is. To be a servant of Krishna is the greatest privilege any jiva could ever have. And to come and be convinced about that is the challenge. And now I wanted to see if I have the permission, Maharaj. I'm sorry to hear you're not feeling too well, but I've started your book, The Vanity Karma, and fortunately the passage that I have come to really expands on this modes of nature and how the conditioned soul rebels and the kind of manner in which that rebellion takes place. So if I just want to read something from Vanity Karma, where you talk about these modes of nature and how nature has her own rhythms and seasons and times, and how it's all a well-oiled machine. So here's a verse from Bhagavad Gita that you quote. Prakrite kriyamani gune karmani sarvasa ahankar vimudhatma kartam iti manyate. All acts are carried out by dint of the qualities of nature, yet a soul, bewildered by false ego, thinks I am the doer. So here is the idea, you say, that just as the laws of nature control the movements of the celestial bodies, planets, and stars, those laws also control the movement of the bodies of even the smallest living being. Living beings too follow this ordained course, taking birth, growing, staying for a while, multiplying, dwindling, and dying. And all this lies beyond our control. And then you say how in the Bhagavad Gita it takes this further. Even the things we take for granted that we are doing, the Gita says, are in fact carried out by the machinery of nature. Though we believe we act because we want to, in fact, we act because we are compelled to. We eat, we sleep, we love, we defend ourselves because the bodies we live in tell us we must and give us no choice but to obey. We are strapped to the machinery. And so the acts we think we perform are in fact carried out by the force of the modes of nature. So Maharaj goes on to talk about how a person at peace in goodness acts calmly and thoughtfully. A person charged with passion strives and endeavors, driven by ambitions and yearning. And a person steeped in ignorance declines into lethargy, foolishness, and delusion. So then Maharaj says, what of free choice? If we're all strapped to this machinery and compelled by the bodies that we're inhabiting, then do we have any free choice? If everything's destined and fated, so then Maharaj said, yes, we do have that free choice, because we can choose to follow the rules and regulations as in the Shastra for Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. That much choice we are given to follow. And in that way, we can rise and transcend the modes of nature and realize ourselves as the spirit soul and be put into our and actually gain our position in our constitutional position as servitor of Krishna. Sorry, but I'm so enjoying this vanity karma. It makes everything so much more clearer. Thank you, Maharaj, so much for that book. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mata, for that extensive commentary on the purport, which is also very extensive. And thank you to Maharaj for producing such a wonderful book. Vijay Krishna, let's see if there's a comment before yours that I'm missing. Oh, okay, no, we've already read that. Vijay Krishna Prabhu remarks in the chat, Krishna is the enjoyer because someone has to be the enjoyer. And if you think that to be the enjoyer is easier, you're mistaken. To be enjoyed is the easiest role. The ones who envy Krishna because he's the enjoyer have diminished intelligence. The intelligent ones know that to create, administer, and enjoy is extremely demanding. And the worst of it all is that if you become the enjoyer, you're risking to become envied, hated, and unpopular. Who loves to be the unloved? Not me. Hare Krishna. These purports by Prabhupada are pointed reminders of basic aspects of Krishna consciousness that we hear again and again and again in Prabhupada's purports because we need to hear those. Right? We're so, at least in my case, I can say, we're so conditioned that we'll hear and say, oh, this makes sense, or this is intelligent, or this is very nice. But the acharyas know that we have to repeatedly hear again, again, and yet again these same points. And hopefully we'll apply our limited intelligence and limited faith to this knowledge and in our own way surrender to it. So we could adhere to what the Lord is saying, which is much stronger than our own limited, concocted views. I want to add a very tiny side note. This purport talks about, no, I'll leave that aside actually. Does anyone else want to say something about this verse? Then Murari Gupta, would you like to read the next verse, verse 6?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I'm not in a position to do any reading.
All right.
Just here, association.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Priyanka Mata.
I guess what. Evam paravedhyanena tatritvam prakrte puman karmasu premanesu gunain atmani mannate. Because of his forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of material energy as his field of activities, and thus actuated, he wrongly applies the activities to himself. The forgetful living entity can be compared to a man who is under the influence of disease and has become mad, or to a man haunted by ghosts who acts without control and yet thinks himself to be in control. Under the influence of material nature, the conditioned soul becomes absorbed in material consciousness. In this consciousness, whatever is done under the influence of the material energy is accepted by the conditioned soul as self-actuated. Actually, the soul in its pure state of existence should be in Krishna consciousness. When a person is not acting in Krishna consciousness, he is understood to be acting in material consciousness. Consciousness cannot be killed, for the symptom of the living entity is consciousness. The material consciousness simply has to be purified. One becomes liberated by accepting Krishna or the Supreme Lord as Master, and by changing the mode of consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness.
Thank you. Priyanka Mata, would you like to offer any observations or comments?
Yes, Prabhu. So in previous verses, somewhere we read about Ambrish Maharaj, that how it is, because it is not, as Srila Prabhupada says, that it is not possible for the consciousness to be killed. Similarly, it is not possible that the desires can be stopped. So the senses can be controlled. They need an engagement. So the one way that is given to us by Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas is to engage those inclinations towards Krishna service. An example was given of Ambrish Maharaj, how he used his senses, all the limbs of his body, his complete body in the service of the Lord. And specific examples are given how he used his eyes to have the darshan of the Lord. So although those senses are material because we are conditioned, but when we're utilizing them in Krishna service, we are getting purified. The senses are also getting purified, and the material consciousness is getting converted to Krishna consciousness. Because when the senses they perceive the sense objects, then the contamination comes in. But when we don't let the senses enjoy those sense objects, but we engage the senses in Krishna service, then uh, the material consciousness will not seep in through those material senses. Our conditionings will gradually be relieved. So Amrish Maharaj used his nose to smell the flowers and tulsi leaves offered to the Lord. He used his legs to walk to the temple of the Lord. He used his body to embrace the devotees of the Lord. He used his ears to hear about the Krishna Katha. And so we can follow in the footsteps of our acharyas, of the examples given in the Vedas. how they are utilizing their whole body, mind, and words in Krishna service. We see from example of Srila Prabhupada how till the end of his body he was everything belongs to Krishna for such devotees. So we should follow in the footsteps of such devotees, and that's the way we can try to apply this message in Srimad Bhagavatam, that we should transfer from the material consciousness to Krishna consciousness. Thank you, Prabhu. You are on mute, Prabhu. We are not able to hear you.
Thank you very much. That was a very focused commentary. And you brought up the transcendental example of Ambarish, which is very appropriate, and it's a meditation that we can all aspire for. Instead of, if I think of what my arms do every day, but what they could be doing in devotional service, or if I think where my legs take me to this mundane place, to that mundane place, but instead I could be using them to walk to the temple, go out on Sankirtan, distribute books. Very appropriate example. Ambarish Maharaj has reached the Bhaktivedanta conclusion that Krishna is everything. So he uses everything. But we all have the challenge of using things the same way Ambarish Maharaj did. Thank you for bringing that up. We're at 7:54. Do we have time for another verse? I'm not sure. It's a fairly long verse. So someone is.
Prabhu, you're
Saraswati Mata, I didn't hear. Did you?
And I was just saying you'd become muted for a second there.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Thank you. Any volunteers for Kirtan? Tulsi Priya Mataji, perhaps? Dana, have we ever heard you sing Hare Krishna Kirtan in this Sangha?
We have, but it's not the best.
Well, you know the words, right?
Yes. I will try. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. Thank you.
Jai, thank you, Dana, very much for leading us in this night's kirtan. And thank you to all the participants. Thank you to Maharaj for being here. I don't, oh, Maharaj is here. He's hiding behind my chat window. And at the risk of saying what the host usually says, I'll invite everyone to come back on Monday. Okay, something has been posted. Tulsi Mataji has posted links for the recordings in the chat, and a link to support New Jersey ISKCON and their building of their temple. And Jayadvaita Maharaj, his website is there. And these classes are now on Maharaj's YouTube channel. And Saraswati Mata says to Dana, "You have a sweet, sincere voice to sing the mantra. As my grandmother once told me, even a frog croaking the glories of Krishna with love is more pleasing to Krishna than the angelic voice with no real love for Krishna." Jai. So thank you, everyone, and I apologize for my faults in hosting the Sangha. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Tulsi Mata. And let's say all glories to the devotees, all glories to Jayadvaita Swami. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajak Acharya Astotra Sotashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ramsiko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Chandra Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ki Jai. Shri Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna.
And
Samaveda.
all glories to Guru Das Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Glory, any glories go to my spiritual master. Thank you, everyone. And have a really wonderful evening. Hare Krishna.
Yes.